Hello everyone. Thank you so much to ATC Ideocrats for inviting me today. My name is Amira Aisya Abdul Aziz. You guys can call me Amira. I am currently 29 years old. I am currently serving as the acting president of MUDA and also the States Assembly woman of Puteri Wangsa in Johor. Okay. Thank you. I first got into politics in 2020, where me, Amir, besides Hadi, Lukman, and a couple of other friends, we decided at that point of time, it was post-Langkah Sheraton, and at that point of time, we were very tired of the same old politics, we were very tired of the same old players, and we thought, you know, we don't just want young people's voices to be heard, we want young people to be at the forefront of decision making. And so we thought, you know, rather than waiting for others to give us space in politics, we need to go and grab our own spaces ourselves. And so in 2020, September 2020, we decided to submit our ROS registration where we form our own political party called Malaysian United Democratic Alliance, or MUDA. So that was, in short, the first time I joined into politics. Maybe after this I can, you know, delve into it a little bit deeper as to why I decided to join politics. Yeah.
Okay. Next to Sir Amir Hadi. So, Sir, we would like you to introduce more about yourself as well as why you entered into the political arena.
Okay, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Kamu cepat betul. Okay. Alright, okay. My name is Hello. My name is Amir Hadi. I am currently the Secretary General of betul.
Kalau tak guna mic lagi kuat suara.
Okay lah. Maybe I'll just put the mic here. Everyone can hear me, right? Okay. So my name is Amir Abdul Hadi. I'm currently the Secretary General of MUDA, one of the co-founders, as mentioned by Amira. Before I joined politics, I worked in civil society. I work with Suaram. I'm not sure if you have heard about Suaram before. Anyone have heard about Suaram before?
Ya, benar.
Suaram is a human rights organisation. So my task in Suaram is to observe the usage of security laws in Malaysia. Before that, I worked with Gerakan Hapus Akta Hutang, movement to repeal Sedition Act. And then I'm also quite active with youth movement called Liga Rakyat Demokratik. And then I'm also part of Kelab Bangsa Utama. Pernah dengar Kelab Bangsa Utama? Pernah, So Kelab Bangsa Utama ada soup kitchen called Dapur Jalanan Kuala Lumpur. Not sure if I've heard, but in 2013 we started the soup kitchen. So I'm quite active in activism, but I've never thought that one day I will join political party. I've always believed that when you want to get involved in politics, tak semestinya parti politik. You can involve in political arena dengan join civil society. You can also individually participate in mic saya telah pun ditarik.
Kebebasan suara tiada.
Kebebasan suara. So never imagine one day I will join political party, because as I mentioned, I work with civil society. We work on law reform. I work with politicians, because if you talk about law reform, ni majority law student kan, you like it or not, you have to work closely with the lawmakers. And lawmakers tu kita punya ahli parlimen dan sebagainya. Dan of course kita pun waktu tu ada that perceptions that politicians semua sama je. Mungkin korang pun ada persepsi yang sama pada kami yang sekarang ni dah jadi ahli politik. Tapi itu persepsi yang pada saya legit. So never imagine, not even once I rasa yang I akan masuk parti politik, apatah lagi menubuhkan satu parti politik yang baru. But then of course we boleh ke panjang sangat ke tak kan?
Boleh.
Of course
Panjang lagi pun boleh.
at that time, at that point of time, we have never changed the government. Remember, right? When's the first time we changed the government?
2018.
2018. It's the first time since the first election in 1955. Yeah, 2 years before independence, we had our first election. We have never changed the government, right? And at the same time, of course, civil society at that time, we work closely with political party on the opposition side. because we shared almost the same situation. Kita ditindas, ada yang ditahan dan sebagainya. So we work closely to change the government at that time. But changing the government at that time doesn't mean that we want to change from Pepsi to Coke, or from A to B, or from Najib Tun Razak to Anwar Ibrahim only. We want to change the government at the time because we wanted to change the mentality of the people. That kita kalau nak bergerak ke hadapan as a country, kita kena sentiasa bersedia untuk menukar kerajaan sekiranya mereka tidak lagi menjadi representatif kepada rakyat. Kalau dia tidak lagi bersuara, sebab kalau kita ingat waktu itu, they played race and religion to stay in power, remember? For so many years. They said that, oh, if you vote for other than Barisan Nasional, habislah orang Melayu. MCA akan gunakan yang sama, kalau vote for other, or PAS will become the government. So they played race and religion. Tapi kita nak ubah mentaliti bahawa every time, regardless who the government is, waktu tu tak kisahlah Pakatan Harapan ke, kalau MUDA jadi kerajaan ke, we want to change the government because we want to change the mentality of the people. That every time the government fail to become the representative, the true representative of the people, we change them. That's what happened in a more mature democracy. In UK, we have what? Labour and Conservative. In US, we have Republican and Democrats. Who's the president of US now? Before that, Biden is Democrat, but Trump is Republican. Before that, Obama. So they always change the government when they think that the government doesn't represent their voices. So waktu itu kita, tapi nak dipendekkan, kita nak lagi panjang saya cerita. So apabila berlaku langkah Sheraton, I think that's the turning point. We said enough is enough because we have done so many things at that time. Many people got arrested. I was put in the detention center also because of some demonstration. Some people have been charged in court, and a lot of things happened, right? For us to be able to change the government and to push forward reform agenda. And what's reform agenda? A lot of reform agenda, okay? But then the government can fall just like that. And I told my friends at that time, when I was in Suaram, of course I've been asked to observe the usage of security laws, terrorism, blah blah blah. But I'm also working closely with orang asli. Orang asli, every time dia nak pergi mengundi, dia kena jalan kaki 5 jam keluar daripada kampung. Tak ada jalan raya, tak ada lampu, tiada lampu ada. But every time ada election, orang pun datang janji, kita akan bagi lampu elektrik. Habis election, hilang. So, government falls just like that. And it's almost a carbon copy of what happened in 1998. It's literally between the same people. I'm not saying this or that, or dia atau dia yang jahat atau tidak, tak, I'm not saying that. But power struggle brought down the government. It's power struggle, you like it or not, it's power struggle. And power struggle brought down the government. Dan dia merencatkan agenda kita untuk membuat reformasi dalam negara. So sebab itu kita datang dengan kawan-kawan semua. I met with Amira, met with Sadiq at the time for the first time. Before that I always criticize him. Dan kawan-kawan lain, Luqman dan lain-lain, kita decide. Sebelum ni kita dekat luar, sekarang ni kita bersuara, kita buat serah memorandum, forum dan sebagainya. They don't want to listen to us. We think that this is the time for us to challenge them secara face to face. So that's the reason why we formed the party and I joined MUDA. So mungkin tu introduction yang sederhana.
Terima kasih.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the very lovely introduction. So I would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Safina.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are going to be your moderator for today. So without further ado, we can straight start with today's questions. We have 4 questions that we would like to ask you for this session. The first one, what are MUDA's strategies for moving out of Syed Saddiq's shadow and establishing itself as a distinct party which is not solely Syed Saddiq's party?
Okay, I think first and foremost, when we establish MUDA, antara benda paling penting that we wanted to do is we wanted to get out of the same old politik yang berpaksikan kepada individual politics. If you look at any other political party in Malaysia or the political scene in Malaysia as a whole, when you ask the regular Malaysian about a certain political party, people don't really know what that party stands for. Let's say if I ask my auntie who supports Barisan Nasional, do you know what Barisan Nasional stands for other than, fighting for the Malays, for example, although you are the MIC and MCA as well. But they wouldn't know, but they would know the individuals in the party. They would know that, Barisan Nasional means Najib Razak, Barisan Nasional means Zaid Hamidi, Barisan Nasional means Hishamuddin Hussein. So when we established MUDA, we wanted it to be more of a policy-based party rather than a figure-based party or individual-based party. But of course, we can't deny the fact that Syed Saddiq himself is a very looming figure in politics in Malaysia, right? At such a young age, he managed to become a minister, and he's very charismatic and he's very outspoken. And so, of course, naturally, people recognize him a lot more than people like myself, Amir or Luqman, not because we are short of people who are as outspoken. In fact, I think people like Amir has been more outspoken than Saddiq even years before he entered politics, right? But people just recognize him more. But when the decision that was happened last year with Syed Saddiq's court case, of course, as a party and as friends, we are extremely angry and dissatisfied with the decision. However, we see it also as an opportunity. Syed Saddiq being a very principled person, and the party itself as well, we've decided that if you are already convicted of a certain case, you can't hold a very distinct position in the party. And Syed Saddiq himself, before anyone in the party asked him to step aside, he himself came to the meeting saying that, I would want to step aside. So I think at that point of time, although we know that it's very tough for the party to move on, we see it as an opportunity for the party to showcase more people in the party that is actually just as amazing, if not even more so amazing, than Syed Saddiq or myself or Amir, right? And so, moving forward in the party, that is the reason why, as soon as I was announced as the acting president, one of the first PC I did was to talk about pergerakan muda dalam 100 hari sebagai pemangku presiden. And that is number one, the most important thing for me is to rejuvenate the party from within. And I'm still ongoing my MUDA tour, meeting the grassroots, but also most importantly is to show back to the people what MUDA stands for beyond just a person. So we are currently firming up everything that is the foundation of MUDA itself. Our policy work, our organization, and the leadership itself. And moving forward, we want to showcase that MUDA is more than just these 2 or 3 people, or MUDA has gone through 3 elections. TRN Johor, we sent in 7 representatives, we sent in 7 candidates. PRU, we sent in 6 candidates, and the recent states election, we sent in 19 candidates. So in total, I know you all are law students, but help me out here. In total, how many is that? 19, 6, 7, that would be 25, 32. About 32 candidates, right? So although we've only showcased 32 candidates, but we are more than just those 32 candidates. So moving forward in the party, that is the reason why we want to empower more at the grassroots level, at the parliament level, at the state level. I remember in all the tour that I did, I've been to Selangor, Wilayah, Johor, Sabah, Sarawak. These are the 5 states that I've toured, and I'm going to Kedah, Penang, and Perak 2nd and 3rd March. And I told all of them that the most important thing right now is for the state leadership and parliament leadership to step up and speak up about issues in their particular state and also national issue. You shouldn't just wait until, Amira says something, or you shouldn't wait until Amir says something. Everyone has the power to do that. That's number one. And number 2, we also believe that because we established MUDA, because we want to give power to young people to make changes, right? And myself, Amir, although we are very young right now, we will not stay young forever. And so one of the most important things for us in MUDA is to ensure that we will always have succession plan, or we will always have younger and younger people coming into the party to fight for the same things that we are fighting for, speak up about the things that they believe in. And so one of the things that is our major project right now is what we call Terbuka. And Terbuka is a leadership program where I see some Terbuka participants here. I'm not sure whether they want to expose that they are Terbuka participants, but they are here. Maybe if you want to, you can raise your hand so people can see that you are a Terbuka participant. They're like looking at each other. Should we raise our hand? Yeah. So one of the things that we did is the Terbuka, where we want to expose to younger people and more young people about politics, activism. As Amir has mentioned, politics can go beyond political party. So how do you be political, even if you don't want to be in a political party, for example? So all these things are things that we are trying to do within MUDA as of right now. So it's very technical, but we believe that if at the point at which if we think that the party is over just because one person or two people are not there, then we have failed as its co-founding member. And so we believe that despite not having Sadi or even myself or even Amir, I strongly believe that MUDA will still be able to go forward.
So, same question.
Same question.
Kalau nak bagi pendapat boleh.
Mungkin nak tambah sikit daripada apa yang Amira dah sebutkan. Other than that, kita juga tengah cuba untuk strengthen our ideological base. Because of course, bila kita tubuhkan MUDA, like one of the criticism against MUDA is it's not clear where the MUDA stands in the economic and political spectrum, right? So I think we discussed about this in length when we formed the party together with Amira. We sat down with Lokman, with Dr. Tiolikan. And Tiolikan is the one who's in charge at that time to chart untuk draftkan ideologi MUDA, dan kita bincang dengan panjang. And we said this, one of the biggest problem in politics in Malaysia, and not just in Malaysia, is that kita terlalu banyak politik yang berteraskan simbol dan slogan. Simbol dan slogan maksudnya, kalau parti itu simbolnya agama, dia akan dilihat sebagai representasi, the representative of the religion. Even though maybe some of their acts tidak in line dengan that principle. Kan? Dalam masa yang sama, kita juga tahu bahawa kebanyakan ideologi yang ada ini, dia sudah ada a very negative connotation. Ideologies such as socialism, as an example. Very negative among especially people in rural area. They have these perceptions that socialism is communism, socialism ni jahat, liberal dan sebagainya. Even though liberal and socialism is actually on a different spectrum, tapi orang tak ada that pemahaman pasal isu ini. So kita kata waktu itu, maybe we should try to look at other countries such as Indonesia. When dia mencapai kemerdekaan, Soekarno, tahu Soekarno?
Tahu, Presiden pertama.
Presiden pertama, the founding father of Indonesia, come up with Marhainism. I'm not sure if you've heard about Marhainism. Tapi Marhain ini adalah perkataan yang diambil daripada lokal, yang tidak ada negative connotation. No negative connotation. So dia boleh chart masa depan negara dia, bangsa dia sebagai bangsa Indonesia dengan satu ideologi lokal. So waktu itu kita kata, we will come up with MUDAism. Tapi kita selepas beberapa tahun dan sampai sekarang, kita akui kita gagal untuk menerangkan. And everyone have different interpretation of what MUDA is and what MUDAism is. Right? So we go back to the drawing board and we decided that the party will openly declare, if it's okay for me to say it here, that we subscribe to social democracy. And MUDA is a social democratic party. And what we are doing right now, other than Terbuka, internally we are also doing what we call as Sekolah Muda. Right? So we want all of our members to understand the party principle. So, untuk kita melahirkan pemimpin-pemimpin yang baru, bukan sahaja pemimpin itu dia boleh bercakap, tetapi juga memiliki kefahaman politik dan berpegang dengan prinsip yang sama dengan parti. Sebab tanpa itu, kadang-kadang kita tersalah. Sebab bila kita dalam parti politik ini, saya rasa mungkin akan ada soalan ini nanti, tapi saya cakap dulu. Orang akan anggap, if you are in political party, your ultimate goal is to win election. And only to win election. And for you to win election, it's okay for you to, as an example, let go of your principle. You can work with coalition A, and you can always jump ship to coalition B. Even though coalition A might have different principle from your party. And of course, some people have been pushing MUDA to work with some coalition that are not in line with our party principle. And bila kita nampak ini, kita tahu yang masalah dia ialah kita tidak ada pemahaman tentang prinsip. Dan saya ada sebut dalam kawan-kawan teroka, the prinsip dia kena mesti berjalan bersama dengan strategi. Oh yes, as a political party we want to win election, but not just winning election. We want to win election, but at the same time we want to bring change to the country. So itu antara yang kita buat. Saya sebenarnya nak cerita pasal sekolah muda tu, tapi panjang sikit. Sekolah muda kita bagi untuk pemimpin-pemimpin, kita tengah prepare. Dan macam disebutkan oleh Mira, kita diumumkan Mira hujung tahun lepas, kita dalam proses rejuvenasi parti. Of course, it's really tough for us as a very young party when the most popular figure in the party stepped down as the president. It's affected everyone, including the leadership, including our members. Moral memang jatuh, kita kena akui benda tu. Kita juga berhadapan dengan pilihan raya, and we lose quite badly in the last state election. I contested, I lose deposit. tapi yalah, kita kena akui yang itu memberi kesan kepada kita secara moral. Dan kehilangan Sadiq memang satu perkara yang besar. But like Amira said, if we fail untuk go beyond Sadiq, kita gagal sebagai antara orang yang menumbuhkan parti dan memimpin parti dalam masa sekarang. So we have to go beyond Sadiq, but to go beyond Sadiq, kita juga kena memastikan kita memahami prinsip parti dan bekerja di dalam kerangka prinsip kita. So itu sedikitlah. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Untuk soalan seterusnya, soalan ni merupakan soalan yang sudah ditanya kot kepada Yang Berhormat Setiausaha. Tapi sekarang ni rakyat mempunyai persepsi bahawa MUDA telah memenangi dalam pilihan raya sebelum ni, pilihan raya negeri Johor serta pilihan raya umum ke-15 dengan undi simpati Pakatan Harapan. So untuk dalam pandangan pengundi Pakatan Harapan, apabila MUDA tarik sokongan daripada Kerajaan Perpaduan merupakan satu tingkah laku khianat terhadap Pakatan Harapan yang menolong MUDA untuk menang kursi DUN, Puteri Wangsa serta MUA. So apakah cabaran terhadap MUDA dalam pilihan raya akan datang, pilihan raya ke-16?
Saya dulu. Atau
mana?
Do you want to go first?
Pertamanya, saya rasa we cannot deny the fact that suatu pilihan raya negeri dan pilihan raya umum berlangsung, sememangnya MUDA bekerjasama dengan Pakatan Harapan. However, there's this important thing that they have to understand as well, and not just them lah, kita semua kena faham, which is that collaboration and that friendship goes both ways. Bukan sahaja Pakatan Harapan berkempen untuk MUDA, MUDA juga berkempen untuk Pakatan Harapan. In fact, if you look at the reality of places like MUA, for example, in places like MUA, Pakatan Harapan is very unpopular. The one which is more popular was Perikatan Nasional, simply because if you look at the vote sewaktu itu, you can see the swing of the people's vote towards Perikatan Nasional. And this happened di peringkat DUN juga. Di peringkat DUN, di mana suatu pilihan raya negeri Johor, Pakatan Harapan tidak mampu menang kedua-dua Maharani dan Sungai Balang, which is MUA, right? Maharani goes to PAS and Sungai Balang went to UMNO. So in places like MUA, where the Pakatan Harapan flag is not so popular, Syed Saddiq actually brings about 15% voter bank with him. So this is something that maybe if you guys are more interested in politics, places like Malaysia, country like Malaysia, kita sangat-sangat partisan politik ya. So kita semua tahu kalau kita keluar mengundi, most of our people would vote based on the party rather than the person. Tak kisahlah siapa, ada setengah tempat tu orang kata, I remembered I had this conversation with Liu Chin Tong, and he did mention, you know, in some places for DAP, you letak batu pun DAP akan menang. In that kind of sense, you know, in certain places where the logo is so popular, you letak siapa-siapa dia akan menang. But you will have some figures like Syed Saddiq for example, or people like Khairi Jamaluddin for example, or let's say kalau dekat dalam DAP you have a lot of people like Goh Bin Singh for example, or Yo Bin in UMNO as well. There are some people who carry with them their own voter bank. So dia pergilah dekat mana-mana tempat, dia bertandinglah bawa mana-mana logo, they will have some voters will vote for them regardless. So that is people like Syed Saddiq. So when he went to MUA, all the all the predictions, even by Invo, and almost all predictions lah, said that Pakatan Harapan and MUDA will lose that seat. Why? Because the logo is not so popular. So, although I admit, in terms of, for example, like Puchi Wangsa, Pakatan Harapan was very popular. But places like MUA, actually the credit has to go to Syed Saddiq. You have to admit that. And the same way, where Syed Saddiq actually went and campaigned for so many other Pakatan Harapan leaders, right? And so, to say that the help goes only one way is unfair. The help goes both ways. We campaign for you, you campaign for us. Not to say that I'm not grateful. I'm definitely extremely grateful to Pakatan Harapan. But another thing that we need to understand in terms of politics, and if you want to be a principled politician, loyalty should not be to coalition or to even party, right? Loyalty should be to your principle, to your fight, and to the promises that you have given to the people. And so, the same thing because I've gotten this question a lot of times when they say, oh, MUDA mengkhianat bila MUDA tarik diri daripada kerajaan perpaduan. My question is, siapa sebenarnya pengkhianat? Because we didn't betray our promises to the people, right? We said we wanted to fight against corruption, and we said that Zaid Hamidi should be convicted. And once Zaid Hamidi's case was dropped, regardless the fact that Syed Saddiq lose his peruntukan in perpaduan, and I myself also lose my peruntukan from kerajaan perpaduan, but it's okay. We decided that we want to stand firm with our stance, our principle, and what we have promised to the people. So if you look at betrayal, pengkhianatan, you should never look at it to a coalition or party, because then you will start to membenarkan segala apa yang your coalition or party does, right? And again, that's what I think Amir touched a little bit just now about when you try so hard to win an election, you started to make so many compromises. And I have to admit, okay, this is a very frank discussion, right? And I believe that you are also here to listen to frank answers. And frankly, in politics, you do have to make certain compromises. But at the same time, you must know where your red line is. And from the very beginning, when we formed government with Kerajaan Perpaduan, I remember we have this meeting with our JCAP members, Syed Saddiq and myself. We asked our CEC members, look, government will be formed. It will be a unity government. There will be Barisan Nasional in it. Are we comfortable with it, right? We asked this question to CEC, and we even allow our state leaders to check in with their state grassroots and pimpinan. What do the state pimpinan think about this? And what we agreed at that point of time is, okay, we can compromise with this unity government, but we must draw our red line. And at that point of time, we have agreed that we have several red lines. One of them is Zaid Hamidi's case, and the second one was Najib Razak's case. That's one of the red lines that we discussed lah. So once that red line is crossed, again, another frank discussion, we went back to CEC and we discussed. So for your information, CEC stands for Central Executive Committee. For MUDA, we call it JCAP, Jawatan Kuasa Eksekutif Pusat. So we went back to JCAP and we asked this question, see, we have agreed that this was our red line. So what do we do now? Do we still compromise, or do we stand with what we have agreed before? And I'll be very frank, there are people who say, look, this is real life, this is reality, this is no longer about just idealism. You know, we should just compromise. There are people who say that, you know, and in their mind, it's like, because if we don't compromise, Sadiq will not get peruntukan, Amira will not get peruntukan from kerajaan perpaduan. How do you guys want to serve the people? And okay, this is macam lari sikit lah, but this is also part of the reason why we always fight for constituency development funds for it to be gazetted. Because kalau kita tak buat macam tu, any government that comes in will use peruntukan as a blackmail. That's what is being done. You use peruntukan to blackmail people to support you. And so even our members pun ada yang rasa macam, tapi kalau kita tak support nanti kita tak dapat peruntukan, right? Which is unfair, because then you have to turn against your words against your people simply because you want peruntukan. But then we decided, look, we have drawn our red line. Kalau sekali kita cross our red line, we will only be crossing it more and more. Once you step over that line, you will not step back. You will only just step forward further and further. And so that was when our red line was drawn. Was there anger? Yes, there was anger. Was there people who voted for us that feel betrayed? Yes, there are people that voted for us that feel betrayed. But similarly, there are also a lot of people who voted for the unity government that also feel betrayed, right? So the betrayal shouldn't go only for coalition and party, but you must always think about what kind of politician or what kind of political party you want to be. And at the end of the day, for myself and for Sadiq, simply because we are the only ones who do have a constituency, the best thing we can do is to still give our very best at our constituent. Whether or not the votes that we get was sympathy vote, for example, or was it purely because they support us, we leave it for the voters to decide. At the end of the day, voting is at the power of the people, and you cannot simply just go compromises after compromises simply because you want to win. Because at the end of the day, kalau you buat macam tu, what is the use for us to form a new political party? We might as well just join any existing political party if we want to just be the same as everyone else. A little bit lengthy.
Okay. I got my mic already. Hello. Saya rasa hampir semua dah dijawab oleh Mira. Dan yang paling penting sekali adalah apa yang kita maksudkan dengan khianat. What's the definition of khianat? What's khianat? Betrayal. What's the definition of betrayal? We have to ask ourselves. The definition is simple, right? You promise something, you don't do that. You go against that, right? Like Mira said, bila kita lihat semula, akhirnya pengkhianatan itu berlaku apabila sebelum pilihan raya kita janjikan macam-macam. Before the election, we talked about, as an example, LCS. Do you guys know about LCS? The Littoral Combat Ship scandal. Yeah. 6 billion at first. They spent 6 billion to build combat ship, like 6 kapal. Kemudiannya totalnya 9 billion tak siap, dan katanya ada ketirisan dan sebagainya. So LCS issue is just like 1MDB issue before PRU 14. Can you imagine after PRU 14, Pakatan Harapan form government, and then they didn't pursue, they didn't investigate 1MDB. Can you imagine what people will feel at that time, right? Orang akan marah. Orang akan rasa ini adalah satu bentuk pengkhianatan. Because for you to win the election, you campaign pasal 1MDB. Sama juga dengan isu LCS. LCS, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the major issue campaigned by our friends in Pakatan Harapan and also MUDA. We went around the country. Saya pergi, Mira pergi, kita bercakap banyak isu, dan antara isu kita sebut juga adalah LCS. We organize protest. Rakan-rakan dalam kerajaan sekarang adik-adik.
You were charged.
I'm the only person who got charged. Masih lagi di dalam mahkamah. Isu LCS ni ada 2 orang je yang kena dakwa. One is me, sebab tanya tentang isu LCS. The other one is former CEO of posted BNS, if I'm not mistaken, the BNS kan. 2 orang saja. Kemudiannya kita dah tak bercakap lagi pasal isu LCS. Isn't that betrayal? Because before the election we said ada dana hampir 800 juta yang diseleweng. Ada ahli politik yang terlibat. But after the election, senyap. When MUDA want to bring this issue to the parliament through Syed Saddiq, the usul got rejected. People say that, oh, we have to wait for what? If you remember the answer, we have to wait for PAC. You know what PAC is? Public Account Committee. We need to wait for Public Account Committee report. But at the same time, at that time, in a year before the election, Public Account Committee is the one who exposed the wrongdoing and the problem with the LCS issue. What we want to discuss in the parliament is about the wrongdoing, not about the updates. They have to understand. We want to discuss before the election, during the campaign, we said there is politicians who are involved with LCS issue. We want to discuss, we said before the election, there is mismanagement. Kita beli barang-barang tak perlu, barang-barang rosak dan sebagainya. This is what we want to discuss inside the parliament. Not the updates like how many kapal akan buat. Bukan kita tak penting-penting. But that's what we want to discuss. Why do we need to wait for PAC for that? We don't have to. Right? So that's why I say, pengkhianatan ini berlaku pada kita. Kita merasakan ini juga adalah betrayal to the people. We promise to the people that we are going to investigate this. We promise to the people we are going to send someone to jail because of his corruption punya issue. At the end of the day, kita bagi dia DNA. Sebelum election kita kata kita takkan lantik politician to hold GLC position. You can check, you can Google how many politicians have been appointed dekat dalam GLC kerajaan. Kita janji pada sebelum ini, kita kempen, kita akan masukkan Akta Hasutan. We are going to repeal Sedition Act. But until today, we are using Sedition Act against people. We promise to the people that before the election, that we are going to look into security laws in Malaysia. Because this has been abused before. Maria Chin, former MPs for PJ, and also former chair of Bersih, have been detained under SOSMA. Law that replace ISA. You guys law student tentu lagi tahu. Tapi kita tak buat. There's too many things that I can go on and go on until you guys muntah. Because there's so many promises that we made that we didn't deliver. We understand. Okay, this is the reality of politics. Orang sebut real politics. This is real politics. We understand. Machiavellian politics. This is real politics. You like it or not, we need to form the government, and in order for us to form the government, we have to work closely with Barisan Nasional. In 2018, there is no Barisan Nasional. Remember? Why is Sedition Act still here? That's why, actually, every time we are finding excuses for not doing things. It's just an excuse. Okay lah, mungkin sekarang dengan Barisan Nasional, we are talking about quota in education. We want to do away with quota in education. As an example, it's a very controversial issue. They cannot talk about it. Okay lah, I mean like it's too controversial for them to push forward. MUDA we will push for it, but it's too controversial. We understand all this is the real politics. But what's happened to letakkan SPRM di bawah parlimen? We talk about that before. What happened to pemisahan di antara AGC dan Prosecutor Office? Adakah kalau kata kita pisahkan AGC dan Prosecutor, Barisan Nasional akan marah? That's the reason why we cannot do that. That's the real politics? No. It's just an excuse. So macam marah kan? Tadi tak ada mic. Kita cakap kuat. Bila cakap kuat, dia dah jadi mood berceramah. Tapi itu realitinya lah. For us, that is the biggest betrayal. Tapi nak cerita sikit lagi nak tambah. Untuk MUDA pula. MUDA kawan-kawan pun tahu, saya sebagai Setiausaha Agung, kita dah tulis surat beberapa kali kepada rakan-rakan kita dalam Pakatan Harapan. We are sincere. Kita nak bekerjasama, dan kita bekerjasama secara ikhlas. We wrote them letter before the election, saying that we are willing to join Pakatan Harapan. We want to work with Pakatan Harapan as one of your coalition partners. Panggil kita mesyuarat, kemudiannya tak ada jawapan. After the election, kita tulis surat lagi. And kita bukan hanya hantar surat, kita hantar WhatsApp, kita call, semua kita dah buat. Semua communication kita dah buat. Dan dia tak layan. So, apa lagi option yang kita ada? Kita kata pada dia, dalam surat itu kita kata, we are not going to ask for any position. It's clear. We want to have at least a meeting with you to discuss about what kind of peranan, role yang MUDA boleh mainkan. Mungkin kita nak buat reform dalam isu undang-undang AWKU yang masih juga ada. AWKU sebagai contoh, you need people to explain, to campaign. MUDA willing untuk buat. That's what we want to discuss with them. But they don't want to even sit down. So what option do we have? Dalam keadaan orang kata, bila kita bercakap orang kata tak ada group WhatsApp ke? When we criticize the government, when we are still part of the government, people say, you don't have WhatsApp group lah. Tapi bukan ada WhatsApp group, kita dah hantar semua, tak dilayan. So what else? We need to also stand with our principle. That's why we said that we need to take some measure yang akan memberikan jawapan yang tegas kepada mereka. We pull out from the government. When we pull out from the government, we know that our future akan jadi lebih sukar. But we are willing to do that because I believe that current leadership of the party, our members, understand that this is not just about winning election. We join this party, we take this path because we want to change the way we do politics. Not we are the one who's going to change. We want to change politics. So that's it. Okay, thank you.
Okey, untuk soalan seterusnya, ni adalah merupakan isu yang paling latest mengenai Parti MUDA. Semalam pun saya baca artikel dalam Astro AWANI tentang Amir bagi jawapan juga. Tapi hari ini kita dapat jawapan lagi. Okey, soalan ni adalah merupakan tentang beberapa ahli Parti MUDA yang secara tiba-tiba banyak orang meletakkan jawatan kerana atas sebab mereka tidak tahu hala tuju Parti MUDA pada waktu sekarang. So oleh itu, apakah pendapat Yang Berhormat Amira serta Amir?
Okay, I'll go first lah sebab Amira go first dan Amira akan sambung. Pertama, in any organisation, ianya adalah hak demokratik mana-mana ahli untuk bersama ataupun meninggalkan parti atau mana-mana organisasi yang dirasakan tidak sesuai dengan mereka. So kita rasa itu bukan something yang extraordinary lah, yang luar biasa apabila ada orang yang keluar daripada mana-mana organisasi. Kalau kita nak bandingkan dengan parti-parti yang lain di luar, rasanya ribuan kot ahli mereka yang keluar daripada parti. So itu bukan isu yang besar. Kita akui bahawa selepas daripada pilihan raya kecil dan kemudiannya hukuman yang dijatuhkan kepada Hadi, macam yang saya sebutkan di peringkat awal, moral kita terjejas. Ada ahli-ahli juga yang terjejas dengan isu yang begini. Mungkin ada yang rasa macam maybe this project tidak akan berjaya dan sebagainya. Cumanya kita dah pun memberikan juga ruang seluas-luasnya. This is also very important. We give all avenues to our members to not just criticize the leadership, but also to give opinion on how we can bring this party forward. And I read the news, dia bukan cakap pasal masa depan saja, dia ada cakap tentang isu banjir juga. Kita juga ada bukan saja memberikan ruang dalam social media. Abul tahulah banyak dia menguruskan berhadapan dengan kawan-kawan. Bukan saja kita beri ruang social media, Amira juga adakan perjumpaan-perjumpaan fizikal. bersama dengan semua orang. We invited almost everyone, especially for those yang mungkin ada pandangan, untuk menyatakan pandangan. Jadi apabila dia keluar, itu adalah keputusan dia. Maybe dia tak terima dengan penjelasan kita, it's their right. Cuma yang kita nak bagi tahu adalah apa yang disebutkan itu tak betul. Sebab yang disebutkan kata tidak ada penjelasan tentang audit banjir. That is not true. We invited everyone and everyone semua ada ruang untuk tanya soalan. Everything. Dan kita dah jelaskan bahawa di peringkat kita bekerjasama dengan top 4 dalam auditing punya top 10 auditing firm yang ada, yang kita tak boleh sebutkan namanya sebab ini kita punya perjanjian dengan mereka. Kita dah serahkan semua dokumen kepada pihak firm ini untuk buat semuanya, maksudnya semua dah diserahkan, semua bergantung pada mereka untuk mereka buat inquiry dan sebagainya. Kita dah terangkan. Kita dah terangkan juga di antara sebab kenapa agak lewat audit itu berlaku, kerana kita bina rumah antaranya. Dan audit berlaku apabila projek telah siap. So kita bina rumah ambil masa setahun lebih. 2022 rumah siap, dan lepas 2022 rumah siap, kita terus berbincang dengan this auditing firm. So saya tak nak, ini cerita yang terlalu, mungkin kawan-kawan ada yang nak tahu, mungkin ada yang ahli muda juga dekat sini. Dan kita nak bagi tahu yang kita dah terangkan semuanya. So apabila ada yang bertindak nak keluar parti, kita hormati. But we as a political party have to move forward. As I mentioned earlier and also mentioned by Amira, we already launched our rejuvenation project since last year and it's ongoing. And our party members know that what we're trying to do right now is in preparation for our party election end of this year. Kita nak re-register our members dan sebagainya. Sebab kita tahu ada ahli yang mungkin hilang semangat dan tak mau teruskan, it's okay. Tapi kita nak kawan-kawan yang memang betul-betul nak bersama dengan parti, berpegang dengan prinsip parti untuk bersama dan membawa torch ini ke hadapan supaya parti boleh bergerak. So pada saya lah, dan kita juga tahu, rakan-rakan juga sebut daripada negeri, it's not a very big issue actually. It's normal for any organisation. You have differences, you step down and you move forward. We also kami juga adalah satu parti, a very young party yang baru, juga sudah tentu tidak sempurna. Ada kekurangan yang kita tambah baik, tapi saya percaya kawan-kawan yang masih ada yang sekarang ini berjuang bersama parti, kita akan cuba buat yang terbaik. Kalau itu sedikit banyak menjawablah, so saya serah pada Amira untuk tambah.
Pertama, saya echo lah segala benda yang Amir sebutkan sebentar tadi. Tentang isu yang seperti yang Amir sebut, bukan sekadar kita dalam setiap sesuatu parti, terutama sekali dalam MUDA, kita memang appreciate hak ahli kita untuk bersuara. Jadi kalau boleh tanya mana-mana ahli muda yang anda kenal, kalau waktu saya buat jelajah, contohnya saya berjumpa dengan grassroots di peringkat negeri, di peringkat parlimen, saya tidak pernah kata, oh these questions you cannot ask. Kalau boleh jangan cakap macam tak ada. Kita buka ruang untuk semua bertanyakan apa-apa saja. Tetapi demokrasi must also come with, orang kata, integrity and honesty behind it lah. Jadi apa yang sedang dikeluarkan sekarang bukan sahaja berniat mengkritik, tetapi it has gone to slander. Law students, is it slander or libel? Ditulis libel sebab dalam penulisan ada juga orang yang menasihatkan pada saya, ada peguam saya nasihatkan pada saya untuk saman. Tetapi saya fikirkan mereka ini bukanlah tidak pernah berkhidmat apa-apa untuk parti. They have probably some of them have given their parts to the party, and I do not want to lengthen the issue longer. Sebab bagi saya, paling penting sekali untuk saya bukanlah mereka yang keluar meninggalkan parti, tetapi mereka yang masih dalam parti dan bekerja keras untuk terus membangunkan parti. That will be my priority. So untuk mereka ini, sekiranya mereka ada apa-apa soalan, as usual, my door is always open. In fact, malam ini saya akan berjumpa dengan beberapa orang yang minta berjumpa kerana mereka ada banyak soalan tentang parti. I practice an open door system. At any point of time, ni kepada ahli muda, kalau anda menonton, even those yang dah keluar, if you want to meet me, ask any question, you want to rant out, you want to marah-marah, I'm open for it. Saya sentiasa terbuka. Tetapi saya akan memfokuskan seluruh tenaga usaha masa saya kepada ahli parti saya yang masih lagi ingin bekerja keras untuk parti. Sebab saya percaya bahawa tak kiralah di peringkat parlimen ke atau di peringkat pusat, sama ada mereka yang keluar meninggalkan parti atau saya atau Amir, yang patah itu akan tumbuh, yang hilang itu akan berganti. Dan insya-Allah kalau kita buat dengan berusaha bersungguh-sungguh, if we do our work really well in the party, hopefully that we will get a good platform for more and more good people to come into the party. So for me, again, maybe one thing that I can reiterate, because I have actually been contacted multiple times by media asking me about this question and asking me about the Banjir audit. So if I may take this opportunity, since I have some media friends here, this will be the update that I've given to the party members and also the update that I'm giving here publicly. As Amir have mentioned, we have done our part. We have given all our documents to the auditor, and we're only waiting for the auditor to return back the audit. And once that is done, then we will have a PC. What for kita buat PC after, takkan media pun tak nak kot datang, kita kata audit kita berada dalam 70%. That's the end of PC. Tak kalau media datang, kesian kalau media datang. We will only do PC once the audit is done.
Amira and Mr. Amir. So now we can move on to the open discussion. So how this is going to work is that we want this session to be as interactive as possible. So we have a few questions prepared. We're going to ask the questions and Ms. Amira and Mr. Amir will answer them. Then the floor will be given to the audience. You can raise your hand, give your own input or ask a follow-up question as well. Just remember to keep things respectful and civilized. Okay, so we'll move on to the first question. Aaron, you have the floor.
Okay, untuk soalan pertama mengenai Fixed Term Parliament Act. So, pada pandangan Yang Berhormat Amira serta Sir Amir, adakah perlunya Fixed Term Parliament Act ni dalam negara berdemokrasi kita?
Okay, Fixed Term Parliament. Sebut tahu kot pasal FTP ni, pernah dengar? Siapa yang pertama kali sebut pasal FTP dekat Malaysia? Our beloved Deputy Prime Minister Zaid Hamidi. Yeah, he mentioned about FTP. I think he's the one of the first individual person yang bercakap tentang FTP. Okay, kalau kita nak cakap tentang FTP ni, kita kena tengok daripada dua dimensi. Ya, kalau kita tengok daripada dimensi FTP itu sekarang, saya kata ianya tidak demokratik. It is undemocratic. Why? Sebab apabila kita tidak ada kuasa untuk menukar kerajaan, bermaksud hak demokrasi kita telah pun hilang. Sebab hak demokrasi rakyat Malaysia ini bukan sahaja mengundi dalam parlimen untuk to vote for their representative in the parliament, but also to bring down the government if they want to. Okay? Kenapa saya kata begini? Sebab there is no details provided. Saya hanya kata begini, kalau kata this FTP ini tidak ada ruang untuk langsung untuk kita menukar kerajaan. Okay? The reason is because right now there is no green paper, there is no proposal, not even let alone bill proposed by the government. So we don't know. We can only assume lah. Okay. Cuma yang lebih details buat pasal FTP ni adalah bersih. Dan satu lagi projek sama. I can't remember what's the full name of projek sama, but projek sama and bersih ada buat kajian tentang FTP. Okay. Dan di dunia ni ada tak negara-negara yang laksanakan FTP?
Ada.
Ha?
United Kingdom.
United Kingdom? Indonesia?
Tapi dah dihapuskan.
Ya, okey. So, tapi di luar negara ada. Question is, ada atau tidak ada? Adakah mereka tidak demokratik? Tak betul. They are democratic. Why? The strictest version of FTP ada di mana? You can check. In Norway. Norway is the strictest version of FTP. Followed by Sweden, if I'm not mistaken. Sweden and also Scotland. Maksudnya, korang tahu tak FTP? Korang tahu kan FTP ni? Do I have to explain about FTP? Explain. Okay, FTP ni adalah secara ringkasnya untuk kita fixkan penggal pilihan raya. Sekarang ini kerajaan ataupun Perdana Menteri ada kuasa untuk panggil pilihan raya bila-bila masa dia nak. Tiba-tiba dia tidur, Anwar Ibrahim tidur, reformasi. I want to call for election. Now, he can do that. Right? So, because of that, there's a lot of uncertainties. Or maybe saya sebab, yalah kita belum berkahwin contohnya. Dah rancang, kita nak kahwin lah hujung bulan ni. Sekali tiba-tiba, bukan hujung bulan ni lah, mungkin 2-3 bulan lagi. Orang pilihan raya, sudah tak boleh kahwin. Sebab pilihan raya. So, banyak uncertainties sebab dia tidak fix. The Prime Minister have the power to call for election bila-bila dia nak. Kawan-kawan tu tahulah pasal benda ni kan. So, fixed term parlimen ini, maksudnya dia nak, kalau kata di Malaysia 5 tahun, election hanya akan berlaku selepas 5 tahun. Term itu je. Antara reason dia yang nak dibuat adalah supaya kita tidak bertukar-tukar kerajaan macam sebelum ni. Antara lain. Ya. Okey. Faham Itu So, the strictest version, macam di Norway ataupun di Scotland dan juga di Sweden, apa yang dia buat adalah, dia tak boleh tukar kerajaan. Dan dia akan tetapkan parlimen 5 tahun. Tapi kalau kerajaan tumbang, kerajaan yang baru bukan melalui election, dia mesti 5 tahun. Kerajaan yang baru mesti serve the remaining terms. Faham tak? Kalau katalah kita election semalam, kemudiannya selepas 3 tahun kerajaan tumbang. Maksudnya ada tempoh berapa tahun lagi? Ada 2 tahun lagi. So the new government will serve only for the next 2 terms, 2 years. After that, there will be election. Alright? So adalah di version-version. Untuk bersih dan projek sama, dia cadangkan untuk supaya pertama, dia mesti ada ruang untuk pertukaran kerajaan berlaku. Regardless. Because without the right to change the government, kita tidak lagi demokratik. Okay? Tapi dia mesti hanya dengan 3 keadaan. Pertama, vote of no confidence. Undi tidak percaya. Sebab selama hari ini, pembangkang, especially last year, every month they say, we're going to change the government. We're going to change the government. We're going to change the government. Affecting the economy and everything. People are afraid to invest. Or nanti jatuh, nanti tukar polisi dan sebagainya. Tapi tak berani untuk bawa masuk ke dalam parlimen. So, nak tukar, okay. Tapi kena ada vote of no confidence. Dan kerajaan kena kalah dalam that vote of no confidence untuk dia tumbang. Yang kedua, dia mesti sama ada, kalau tidak pun vote of no confidence, dia reject supply bill. Apa supply bill? Bajet kita. Kalau kerajaan bentang bajet, kemudiannya bajet itu ditolak ahli parlimen, maksudnya it is also imply that it's a vote of no confidence to the government. Ketiga adalah apabila ada 2/3 of our MPs call for early election. Okay? So ini 3 perkara ini kena ada untuk kita laksanakan FTP, fixed term parliament. Kalau ini 3 perkara ini ada, kita boleh bincang. Doesn't mean that we need to do it now. Okay, ada beberapa perkara lagi yang saya rasa saya tak perlu pergi terlalu teknikal. Antaranya juga adalah macam mana dengan tarikh sebagainya. Adakah perlu amend constitution? Yang dicadangkan oleh Bersih itu tak perlu amend constitution unless kita nak fix the date. Macam di UK dulu. UK 2011 dia ada FTP kan. Lepas tu dia masuk tahun bila? 22. Dia remove FTP tahun 2022. Dia ada tarikh setiap hari Khamis, tak silap hari Khamis pertama something lah. So kalau kita nak buat itu, kita kena amend the constitution. But without amending the constitution pun kita boleh buat, cuma tak ada tarikh itu. But at least we know after 5 years akan ada election. 2-3 bulan, dalam tempoh 2-3 bulan tu akan ada election. At least kita tahu. Banyaklah kebaikannya. I don't think I have to explain about the pros and cons of FTP. Dah tentu ekonomi akan lebih stabil. Sebab kita tak ada lagi ahli politik yang hari-hari kerja dia cerita nak tukar kerajaan. Kan? Dan kemudiannya kita reduce the power of the Prime Minister. Because Prime Minister have so much power. And they can call, macam saya sebut tadi lah, dia bangun tidur, reformasi, dia pun tukar kerajaan, dia nak panggil pilihan raya. So, benda-benda ni lah, ada pros and cons dia. Tapi kita boleh bincang kalau cadangan bersih ini, ataupun cadangan daripada civil society ini, dibawa dan diangkat dan dibincangkan. Tapi kalau the reason why we want to do the FTP is to avoid government to be changed at all costs, then dia tidak lagi demokratik. Faham tak? Faham So itu pandangan saya lah berkaitan dengan isu FTP ini. Okey, saya ada sikit lagi sebelum saya tahu Mira pun panjang pula kalau bercakap dan it's very technical. Satu benda lagi yang penting dalam politik ini kita kena faham. Dia bukan hanya tentang dasar. It's not just about policy and the law that you're going to introduce, so on and so forth. Dia juga tentang masa. Tentang masa. Saya bagi contoh. Apabila kerajaan ditukar in 2018, the government promised to ratify international instrument. And one of the instrument is what? Aisya, as an example. Rome Statute, as an example, right? But they failed to do so. Why? Why? You remember? Sebab ada penolakan yang besar daripada rakyat. They organize a rally, hundreds of thousands of people on the street. Almost as many as people who goes to the bersih rally. Kan? Dia gagal untuk menerangkan kepada rakyat tentang isu ini sebelum dia nak implement. So, dasar itu mungkin baik, tapi penerangan perlu. Kedua, antara contohnya GST. GST tak semestinya GST ni kita boleh bincang, tapi dia tidak semestinya dia tidak baik. But at the time, kita campaign against GST and people reject GST. Not just because GST itself, many other country buat GST juga. Tapi at the same time, as an example, people have bad perceptions towards those in power. We want to give them more money and they're going to misappropriate the money. At that time, MUDA datang dan sebagainya. So kita tak percaya dengan dia. Dan sebab itu GST tak dapat dibuat. Tapi adakah GST ini adalah satu dasar yang tidak baik? Tidak juga. Dia memberikan income yang lebih kepada kerajaan. Begitu juga dengan isu FTP ini. Pada saya, kalau tanya saya secara peribadi, saya rasa tak sesuai dijalankan sekarang. Sebabnya adalah yang bercakap itu Zaid Hamidi. He is the one who mentioned about the law. And people assume the reason why is because dia tak nak kerajaan tumbang, nanti yang DNA dia masuk balik dalam court. That's the perceptions. Dan jadi perkara yang baik ini jadi tak baik. So saya cadangkan kepada kerajaan, if they want to do the FTP, put it inside your manifesto. Explain it to people in the next general election. And then bila dah menang, you implement. Sebab kalau tidak, orang ada salah faham. So itu FTP sikit banyak lah. Saya serahkan semula. Serahkan pada Amira.
I think Amir has explained lengthily. So I'm sure you also have a lot of other questions. But in general, I think for me personally, macam Amir sebut, Amir dah cerita tentang pros and cons. To me, most importantly is for you, if you nak luluskan, you have to explain first what entails under that particular act that you want to propose. Having a fixed election date is always good for everyone, right? Fixed election date, contohnya macam Indonesia, you have fixed election date, parties can prepare, SPR can prepare, everyone can prepare. But as Amir mentioned, make sure that that doesn't close any avenue for the change of government democratically. So bermakna you ada confirm election date that everyone can look forward to. So tak adalah macam, you know, tiba-tiba kita nak hang government and then you terus buat election. But also at the same time, you don't pull the right of, for example, the vote of no confidence, for example. Sebab perkara itu adalah a constitutional right that should not be pulled out. So there's a balance. If you want to do it, there is a balance for that. But also at the same time, if I may take this opportunity to also pesan jugalah kepada my fellow politicians out there, if you really want to change government, right, have the balls to do it in parliament. That's all.
Okay, sekarang kita membuka pentas kepada audience untuk bagi pendapat mereka tentang soalan ni. Okay.
Please speak louder. We can't provide a mic for you.
It's okay, it's okay. Do you think that in Malaysia, the sacrifice of democracy would be beneficial to the country, not just for politicians, but for everyone in general? Given most likely that education is what is lacking in Malaysia, not just in terms of science and whatnot, mathematics, STEM, but also in politics. Do you think that when we sacrifice democracy somewhat, some democracy, given that democracy comes from the people and people are they're quite uneducated, do you think that it could benefit the country in some way?
So when you talk about sacrificing democracy, I would assume that going to the opposite of democracy,
I would
which is
say
Dictatorship of proletariat?
socialism to an extent.
Okay. I think when you talk about a certain system for a certain country, it really depends, right? In Malaysia, we believe that democracy is the best way because it provides, and democracy in Malaysia is we have a constitutional monarchy, which is again very different than other democracy system. And I personally believe that the system that we already have, which is our constitutional monarchy democracy system, that is the best system for us to have as of right now. I definitely don't believe in dictatorship, but maybe to put it into a little bit of context as well, when you talk about education system, for example, or if you talk about socio-economic system, any kinds of system at all, it's really not really tied into whether it's democracy or autocratic or whatever, right? You can, through democracy, you can vote different kinds of policy into the government. That is the most idealistic view lah. That's what we wanted, right? We believe in this person's system, we vote them in, and that is the best part about democracy. But you must also agree, so this is another, if you go into ideology punya class, you will talk about the pros and cons. And the cons of democracy is always, democracy is loud, democracy is messy, democracy is not necessarily the smartest, right? You can vote for something that majority of people might not vote for the best thing, but majority of people will vote for what they think is the best for them. And to me, that would be the best thing to go with. When we talk about because you mentioned about education, for example. I think either education or healthcare, for example, in Malaysia, we actually have, to me, we actually have the best system in the sense that in terms of education and healthcare, we give it for free to the people. A lot of countries that practice open market, for example, does not have free education or free healthcare. You look at, for example, US, for example, right? It's very expensive for you to get healthcare over there. But Malaysia, we have sort of balance in terms of daripada segi ekonomi, kita lebih liberal. Tetapi daripada segi socially, daripada segi economy, daripada segi education, daripada segi healthcare, daripada segi welfare, we are a lot more welfare-based rather than capitalism-based. So I think we do have the perfect balance. Now the issue is not about the current system that we have, but the issue is really about the underlying problems that we have. For example, corruption, right? This issue can happen in any kinds of system. Even worse, if you are in a particular system where corruption happens and you have no way at all to change the existing government. So to me, at the very least, we have that balance where the people can have their say, but at the same time, we make sure that it is at the central rather than too to the left or too much to the right.
Okay, I will try my best untuk tidak terlalu menjadi perbincangan ideologi yang panjang.
Jadi kelas sekolah muda.
Sekolah ideologi. But then I think maybe you are referring to Plato, if I'm not mistaken, because Plato is a staunch critic of democracy, right? Saya dalam isu ini saya setuju dengan John Locke. John Locke lah. What's the full name? Dengan Locke, iaitu government is a necessary evil. Government, memang manusia ini dia ada sifat yang tidak baik, tetapi kerajaan diperlukan untuk menyusun atur masyarakat. Okay. Huh?
Becomes a law student kan?
Oh, law student.
Jurisprudence class.
Can I do a follow-up question?
I want to just sikit je pasal isu ni. Okay. But then philosopher Plato dan lain-lain dulu diorang bincang pasal the idea of justice. So ini nak bagi pada kawan-kawan lain juga untuk cerita pasal demokrasi. They discuss about the idea of justice. Plato ada idea dia, Confucius ada idea dia, semua ada idea-idea tentang justice. Cuma ini saya rasa Tian ada sebut itu, Tian Chua ada sebut juga pada kami. Dia kata most of the definition of justice dia berkaitan dengan kerajaan. Maksudnya bila kita bercakap tentang justice, kita akan kata sistem yang adil. So bagi contoh, kan? Sistem yang adil, sistem yang tidak menindas. Tetapi biasanya yang menindas itu siapa? Kerajaan. Jadi all of the definition about justice, most of the definition about justice adalah definition yang nak diberikan oleh orang yang bukan dalam politik dan diberikan kepada kerajaan. Faham tak maksudnya? Faham tak? Confucius semua ni, semua dia bagi kepada kerajaan. Okey? Tetapi sebab itu ada apa yang dipanggil sebagai konsep hak. Apa hak? Rights. Sebab itu ada konsep hak ataupun rights. Rights ini datang untuk memberikan hak kepada orang biasa, rakyat bawahan. Sebab most of the definition of justice adalah untuk diberikan kepada pemerintah, kepada kerajaan. Tapi tak ada untuk rakyat. Apa yang justice untuk rakyat? Justice adalah pemerintahan yang baik. Pemerintahan yang baik, kerajaan bukannya rakyat. Tapi untuk rakyat, kita minta kita punya hak. Dalam hak pula, sikit je lagi, if that okay. Is it okay? Is it okay if I address this? Is it okay if I address it? Okay, tak apa. Dia quite technical. Tapi dalam hak pula, dia ada hak yang dipanggil hak negatif dan hak positif. Hak negatif ini adalah hak tentang kamu, diri kamu. The rights for you to gain, untuk kumpulkan kekayaan, as an example. It's a negative rights. Hak untuk kamu mungkin makan babi, as an example. Even though maybe tak boleh untuk, it's alright. Itu negative rights. Hak untuk kamu buat satu, itu adalah hak negatif. Ada juga hak yang positif, hak yang melibatkan orang lain juga. Okey? Hak yang bersifat kolektif. Antaranya adalah kamu ada hak untuk pergi daripada Kolej ATC ke Seremban. Hak untuk bergerak. Kan? Hak-hak ini dipanggil sebagai collective rights. Okey? Ataupun positive rights. Okey, ini yang saya rasa yang ditanyakan oleh kawan kita. Socialism, masuk socialism pula lah, panjang tadi masuk socialism. Socialism tidak menentang demokrasi. When you say that, maybe socialism, in fact there is democratic socialism as an example. Ataupun kalau di UK, kita panggil sebagai
Elected dictatorship ke? Elected dictatorship.
No. Bukan. Tapi dia tetap juga dalam konteks demokrasi. Okey. Tapi ada kumpulan atau pemerintah apabila dia berbicara tentang isu ini, dia merasakan bahawa hak individu itu kadang-kadang akan mengganggu hak kolektif. Faham tak? Kamu ada hak untuk pergi daripada ATC ke Seremban, tapi bukan semua orang nak pergi daripada ATC ke Seremban. And that's the reason why, just because you want to go from ATC to Seremban, government have to build LRT station from ATC to Seremban just for you. You get what I mean? Sebab itu adalah tentang kamu, tentang individu. Kita bercakap tentang kolektif. Jadi ada kelompok yang menganggap hak individu itu sangat penting. Ini menjadi basis kepada libertarian ideologi. Okey? Tapi ada yang merasakan bahawa hak kolektif supersede. Hak kolektif is bigger than individual's right. Jadi dia ambil form yang lebih ekstrim untuk reject hak individual. Hanya jadi pada mereka itu adalah untuk kebaikan bersama. Kita fokus pada kolektif. So saya minta maaf. Saya sebenarnya suka bicara tentang isu ideologi ni. Jadi dia akan jadi panjang dan mungkin pada kawan-kawan yang tak berapa into ideological debates and discussion, you're not going to enjoy it lah. Tapi saya nak bagi tahu yang sebab itu ada berlaku. Point saya ialah sebenarnya sosialisme itu tidaklah against totally demokrasi dan sebagainya. Itu bergantung kepada bagaimana dulu orang melihat tentang debat falsafah tentang hak, tentang keadilan dan sebagainya yang membawa kepada sistem hari ini. After so many years, dan kita datang kepada sintesis, iaitu demokrasi adalah sistem yang paling sesuai untuk masa sekarang. Okay, so itu
can invite Amir for another lengthy discussion only about ideology, which will give you guys a very good point for your jurisprudence class.
Okay, minta maaf. Okay, balik. Sorry, ada soalan lain.
Follow up question.
Takut panjang, saya tak jawab, jangan risau.
No lah, jawab je lah.
Just now you said how the government is a necessary evil. In that case, do you think Malaysians perceive elections or choosing of government as choosing between a necessary evil or even more than one evil? And do you think MUDA as a political party can change from people choosing necessary evils to a party that can protect their own interests?
I would say, regardless how principled MUDA wants to be, regardless, whatever kita punya integrity ke apa ke, you will never have a political party that will be perfect for everyone, right? So regardless, kalau MUDA jadi macam mana sekalipun, MUDA will be seen as evil in certain eyes. You get what I mean? So you can never please everyone, especially in a country like our country. Now, when we talk about necessary evil, it doesn't mean evil as in corruption, evil as in no integrity. Evil as in you do have to have a system to govern the people that will, in a way, sometimes sekat certain rights or autonomy of the people, right? So that would be the necessary evil. But the context that we are looking at right now in Malaysia, it's not that evil. It's about which one is the lesser evil in terms of going through your principle, talking about your, delivering your promises. That is the kind of two evils that we are trying to weigh right now in Malaysia. Because, and to me, for example, and not just to me, to MUDA, of course, we do hope that one day, Malaysians don't have to pick between the lesser evil. We do wish that one day, Malaysians will be able to have the power to say, look, I choose the good one and not the lesser evil. But, again, once again, bearing in mind that you will not be everyone's cup of tea, right? But the best we can do is that if you promise something, you deliver. The worst is for you to not just disappoint those who don't like you, but also disappoint those who actually voted you in. So there's a difference between, you know, Locke's necessary evil and the evils that we are seeing right now. And so that's two very distinct conversations.
I don't want to go deep into it. Tapi saya just nak beritahu bahawa the necessary evil, the term necessary evil, the evil that you understand and the evil that they use in that term is different. Okay? Why they use necessary evil? Because they say that human, macam saya sebutkan tadi, dia ada sifat-sifat yang tidak baik juga. We are just a human being, a normal human being. Sometimes kita akan buat salah dan sebagainya. So that's why dia percaya bahawa kita kena kurangkan kuasa kerajaan. Ataupun kita tidak memusatkan kuasa because absolute power corrupt absolutely. So that's the reason why kenapa dia dan saya sebut pasal isu necessary evil. So it's just.
Can I just add on a little bit? Let's put aside daripada segi integrity, daripada segi corruption, all those kind of things, right? Because that can happen to any kinds of ideology. But even when we look at the current political parties in Malaysia, you can see contohnya daripada segi you know, conservative or liberalism is what we call here lah kan in Malaysia. But you see, for example, kalau kita sekarang ni kita tengok macam Perikatan Nasional is very conservative, for example, to the right. Meanwhile, you look at PH as the one which is more centre, not exactly too far to the left, but a little bit more centre. But I just want to share, and this is not from me. I had a forum in what was the university kat Kedah yang kita, UUM. We went to UUM. I went to UUM in a forum with Wan Ahmad Faisal, WAF. And this is what he said. He said that no matter how ke kanan Perikatan Nasional is, if they are elected into government, they will go to the centre. And I think that would be the nature of any political party that is elected in a very multiracial country like Malaysia in terms of policy and also dasar-dasar yang mereka buat. But daripada segi, you know, deep-seated ideology, daripada segi their integrity, that will be a different conversation altogether. Yeah.
Tambah lagi sikit, saya bermula sebagai seorang anarkis.
Dia bermula dibesarkan dalam keluarga PAS.
Keluarga PAS, jadi anarkis. But ideology is very important for me. Yeah. We always discuss about this. Yeah. So kita boleh bincang sembang-sembang lagi. Yeah.
Okay,
so,
thank you. So we'll move on to the second question. This one is also relating education. And okay, I know the question is already on the TV. However, I want to rephrase it a little bit. It could be argued now that the education quality in Malaysia, especially in primary schools, SK specifically, is at an all-time low, especially with the abolishment of UPSR and PT3. So earlier you mentioned, Ms. Amira, you mentioned that education in Malaysia is free. It is free, but at what cost? Are we getting good quality education? Are the teachers working and striving to produce good quality students? What do you think about that?
This is a topic that if Amir can talk about ideology for days, I can talk about ideology for months. But I will try to make it concise so you don't sleep halfway through. But just to give a little bit of background, I was a law student, and then after I graduated, I practiced a little bit, and then I quit because I was very, very passionate about education. So just a little bit of background before I go into it. I was raised in a squatter area. Okay, you guys know what squatter area is, kawasan setinggan. And in my area, majority of the people are Malays. More than 99% are Malays. So growing up, I see how my colleagues ataupun my friends around my age, they dropped out of school very early on. Some got into drugs. I have friends who got pregnant at the age of 15 years old. And it all boils down back to education. That is what I felt. So after I graduated from law school and after I practiced, I went into education. So I went to Ministry of Education to serve in PADU, which is their policy making body. So education is really something that I'm super passionate about. Now, do we sacrifice education because we give it for free? Again, I want to rephrase. Our education is not free. I misphrased it just now. Our education is paid by the people, right? It's paid through tax. So it is not free. Our education is actually the most expensive, you know, in terms of budget kerajaan, budget education kita adalah paling besar selalunya. And so that means our education is not free. It's just free to the people. You don't have to pay for it. But it costs, you know, millions, if not billions of ringgit, right, to get our education going. So no, it's not free. But I do have to admit that our education system is very, very outdated. Now, why do I say this, right? Number one, we are still one of the very, very little country dekat dalam hampir seluruh dunia ni dah tukar kepada education wajib kepada 12 years of education, or at paling kurang 9 years of education. But we are still at 6 years of education, and I know that our current Minister of Education wants to increase it a little bit, but still not the same as everyone else. Now, when you talk about education system as well, although I know a lot of us like to say, oh, look at Finland, for example, because they have the best education system, or you look at Norway, for example. But when you look at education, you also have to look into the local context. Now, the local context in Malaysia might not be the best for us to follow Finland or Norway. But a couple of things that we need to realize adalah the prioritizing of syllabus, right? And this is something that, you know, when I was in Padu, we were talking about this a lot. Because let's say, as you rightfully put, ya, in sekolah rendah, contohnya, sekolah rendah is the most vital part of education. Now, the first 3 years of education is where that is the most important part. And that is in any other countries you go, even if you study education, actually the first 3 years, you only focus on the 3M. Right? You guys know what the 3M is, right? Membaca, mengira, menulis. But we have so many things that we want to cram into that first 3 years, to the point that kita punya education is wide. Daripada segi syllabus, our education is very wide, but it is not deep. So kalau kita compare apa yang pelajar-pelajar di Malaysia belajar dengan pelajar di Singapore belajar sebagai contohnya, what our students learn in 12 years of education, their counterparts in Singapore learned in only 9 years. But we have so many topics, right? Kenapa budak-budak sekolah kita bawa beg berat, ada banyak buku, ada budak yang sampai, you know, slip disc because of their bags. Because buku kita punya tebal, but it is not really in-depth. So we do have to look back into our education system so that our syllabus to be in-depth. Now, when you talk about UPSR or PT3, people say that our education went down because we repealed UPSR and PT3. I would argue that is not the case. Because if you want to talk about whether or not our education should depend on written examination, I would argue that any education, if it is good, you don't have to depend on examination. But what happens in classroom and what happens outside of classroom, that one is the more important part rather than what happens at the end of a particular education year. So, daripada kita nak berbincang tentang kita nak datang kembali UPSR atau kita nak datang kembali PT3, it would be best for you to look back into our syllabus. What we have right now, ya, kita belajar science, if I'm not mistaken, science is 9% of our study hours. Mathematics is 13% of our study hours. Agama Islam is also 13% of our study hours. So, I believe that we still have to learn pendidikan Islam. I'll say here, for Muslims. But at the same time, I don't think it should be higher than science. Because at the end of the day, the schooling system should be prioritizing those kind of things. So, kenapa science 9%, pendidikan Islam at 13%? So, that is already not balanced. So, these are the kind of things that you have to look into before you want to talk about, you know, demolishing UPSR ke, demolishing PT3 ke, you nak bawa masuk pentaksiran berasaskan sekolah ke. Your batch, have you guys started PBS? I'm not sure. Do you guys go through PBS, pentaksiran berasaskan sekolah? You went through PBS? You know what pentaksiran berasaskan sekolah? That your own teacher yang bagi you markah, and in the middle of the year dia ada buat macam
No.
Tak ada.
We
didn't.
went through the standardized exam.
The standardized exam. Okay, interesting. So, one more thing that I have to put into place here, when you talk about politics, when you talk about education, and this is also part of the reason why I wanted to join politics, is because at the end of the day, education is still tied back to politics. Why do I say this? The problem with Malaysia or many other countries out there is that when you have a minister, the minister will serve its term at best for 5 years, right? At best. Itu kalau dia tak digugurkan dan digantikan. So what do they want to do in that 5 years? They want to ensure that they leave a legacy. So the problem with it is, for example, PBS, right? Or any other system lah. When you want to introduce a new system, logically, first you kena buat pilot, right? Pilot. Lepas dah ada pilot, baru you tengok mana yang you nak kena fix, whether there's a little bit of problem that you need to relook, you go back into the lab and fix it, and then you bawa keluar, and then you run another second pilot, for example. Logical thinking, right? Because this is something that will affect thousands, hundreds of thousands of students in Malaysia. But the issue is that bila kita bentangkan kepada menteri a certain program, and menteri thought, this looks like it will look amazing in my portfolio. No, I don't want you to go through pilot. I want you to run through it. So, apa yang terjadi adalah we introduce a system that is not firmed up yet. Dan apa jadi juga masalah adalah kita tak boleh nak salahkan cikgu-cikgu kita kalau mereka tak faham. Sebab we didn't even teach the teachers first on how to teach the student with that particular system. So the problem with our education system adalah we always skip A, B, C. Kita ada, contohlah kita dah A ni kita dah ada sistem tu. Kita skip B, C, D, kita terus pergi ke Z, which is giving it to the students. So that is the most problematic thing in our country. Why? Because the minister say, if I don't practice it now, nak tunggu pilot 1, pilot 2, pilot 3, by then my head is cut off already, rolling down, change into a different minister. So the problem is when the political will and political struggle in Malaysia goes beyond education, or you prioritize your political stance before education. So that is the biggest problem. Now, just to touch a little bit about education as well, one of the most controversial thing that MUDA often fights about is not to get rid of quota altogether, but we want to change race-based quota to needs-based quota. What does that mean? Kenapa kita masih perlukan quota? Because you have to understand that not everyone starts at the same starting point, right? So, how many of you guys here are from Klang Valley? Or from urban area, wherever that is, right? So, when you come from urban area or you come from Klang Valley, you might have better opportunities than your friends who come from very rural area. That means you ada better exposure, you have access to internet, you have, means to pergi to petroscience, for example, right? Or you have means to even look at vending machine. Do you know how many students in rural Sabah or Sarawak that has never even seen a vending machine? But you cannot tell them, oh, kalau you nak masuk university, you work as hard as us lah. Even if they work twice as hard as you, their result might not be better than you, or even the same as you. So that is the reason why you still need needs-based quota. That means you give quota not to particular race, but you give quota because they don't start from the same starting point as you do. So there are many things in our education system that we have to look into, but I would say examination is not necessarily the most important thing to look at first. Okay, access of education, right? We all have access of education, but not everyone have access to quality education. Now that is the most problematic part. And even access to education, yes, we say that, you don't have to pay for education, but so many students, I mean, I'm sure you guys pernah nampak video budak-budak yang naik pipe untuk pergi ke sekolah. They had to walk pipe. Ada yang kena dayung sampai ke sekolah. My area, for example, which is people always think about it as an urban area, but I do have pocket of pinggiran, pinggir bandar. We have this one kampung, Rashifa has been with me to that kampung, where in order for you to get inside the kampung, only two ways. Either you naik 4WD or you naik motor. You cannot naik kereta biasa. And there's this one makcik who told me, untuk anak dia pergi sekolah, tak ada sekolah kat dalam kampung tu. Dia kena ikat anak dia kat badan dia, naik motor sebab dia tak nak anak dia jatuh. Right? Dan itu pun kalau hujan, dia pernah lah kalau dia jatuh motor, dia jatuh sekali dengan anak dia. So you cannot then say that, if this kid work hard enough, he will be a doctor someday, right? It's unfair because we don't start from the same starting point. So there are a lot of things that you need to consider when it comes to education, and I can talk for days about it. But it all again comes back to the political will of whoever's holding the government at that point of time, and whether or not they are willing to prioritize education over their own position and their party's position. I think that is the most important thing that we need to put on the table. Yeah.
Okay. I add to it. Right. Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit. Yeah. Actually, I have a very more controversial views on sekolah kebangsaan. Yeah. I believe that one day, maybe not now, maybe not next year, maybe not in the next 5 years, that Malaysia should have a single stream school. But hear me out, okay? But first, there's a few things that you have to do. You have to address the concerns of parents, especially non-Muslim, non-Malay parents, that there is Islamization happen in school. Doesn't necessarily is true, but there is concern that you have to address. There is also concern that racism happen in government school, in sekolah kebangsaan, that you have to address it first. There is also concern that the facility in sekolah kebangsaan teruk. It's not just a concern lah, it's true lah. Facility memang teruk. Tu belum masuk lagi sekolah orang asli. Sekolah ataupun di luar yang bumbung pun tak ada. Ada yang tak ada dinding. So facility teruk, ada concern tentang isu racism, ada concern tentang isu Islamization. I'm a Muslim myself, of course. But cuba kita duduk dalam alternate reality. I always imagine myself like living in an alternate universe. Negara ni negara Kristian. Saya orang Muslim. Hantar anak ke sekolah ada berlaku Kristianisasi. Definitely saya akan tak gembira. So gitu juga dengan concern daripada non-Muslim parents yang ini berlaku. Sama ada dia betul berlaku atau tidak betul berlaku, we have to address this concern first. Okay. Kemudiannya, kenapa saya kata penting? Sebab saya percaya bahawa one of the biggest reason why politicians can continue playing race and religion card to divide us is because we also don't have that collective memory growing up together. Most of us dipecah-pecahkan daripada kecil lagi. Bergaul dengan kumpulan kita sendiri, sampailah satu tahap wujudnya apa yang dipanggil sebagai prejudis di antara satu sama lain. Prejudis datang kerana kita tak kenal dengan orang yang lain yang berbeza cara hidup dengan kita. Sebab tu saya rasa kita perlu. Sebab tu bila saya kata single stream school, dia lain dengan apa yang dicadangkan oleh orang di sebelah kanan ataupun right wing. Sebab for me, they are not sincere. They are doing that, they are calling for the government untuk introduce single stream school because of their prejudice. Right? Our plan, or saya punya pandangan, sebab kita nak hancurkan prejudice. Jadi kita kena address concerns. Itu satu. Kedua, kita juga tak boleh ada single stream school, tapi bila nak masuk universiti, beza warna kulit. Orang Melayu boleh masuk ni, orang Cina tak boleh masuk ni, orang India tak boleh masuk ni, dan sebagainya, tak boleh. If you really sincere talking about single stream school, after dia habis sekolah, dia kena ada hak yang sama untuk masuk universiti. We have to do away with quota in education. If you are sincere talking about single stream school, we also need to do away with race-based quota. Dan mesti berdasarkan daripada need-based quota. So, dua perkara ini, dan yang terakhir, saya rasa satu benda juga tentang education ini, selepas dia masuk universiti, kadang-kadang ada orang yang tak mampu, macam yang disebutkan oleh Amira tadi, orang tak mampu untuk pergi belajar. So kita juga kena provide, because for me, I always believe that education is a basic human right, that everyone should be able to have equal opportunity untuk dapat pendidikan yang berkualiti. Bukan saja orang kaya, bukan saja orang sesengah bangsa, semua orang should be able untuk dapat pendidikan yang berkualiti. Dan sebab itu saya cadang yang ketiga, dia mesti percuma. So ini 3 perkara yang saya cadangkan tentang isu education. So ya, terima kasih.
So before I open the question to the floor itself, I want to ask a follow-up question. So it is known that non-Bumiputra students are not, I wouldn't say not allowed, but they don't have the opportunity of going to universities such as UiTM, thus making their options for universities itself significantly low. And this is part of the reason why a lot of minorities in Malaysia are pressured to work even harder to earn their place in a normal government university because their options are lesser. So, when it comes to abolishing the quota, as you mentioned, do you think that universities like UiTM should also be abolished?
It shouldn't be abolished, but it should have an open system rather than being limited to a certain race. I think it's the same way, right? Daripada sekolah rendah ke sampai ke university. Regardless of whichever. Again, different times require different intervention. So places like UiTM was needed at that point of time. But did we really do a study, a proper study to say whether or not UiTM is still relevant right now? Because, again, I agree with you. I'll just share a little bit of example, right? I remember, I think the first time when I really felt very strongly against race-based quota was when, right after SPM, we were doing our UPU punya application, right? And I have this friend, she called me up. I was from an all-girls school. She called me up and she was crying and crying and crying, an Indian friend. And she has straight A. I took 10 subjects and I only got 8 A's, right? But I am eligible to apply for any UPU or any foundation. But she called me and crying and said, hey, what happened? Then she said, oh, you know, when I wanted to apply for this subject, kat dalam tu tulis Bumiputra only. When I wanted to apply for this subject, dalam tu tulis Bumiputra only. So there's really very little opportunity for me to apply for anything. And she's not from a rich family. She's not from a super well-off family that can send her to, you know, good college or good, or even any private university at all. So what she did was, at the end of the day, she had to take STPM, which, to be fair, our STPM is amazing, but we were never exposed to the fact that our STPM is actually much better than most pre-university courses that we have in Malaysia. So we always thought that having to take STPM is a very lawyer move lah. Dia macam not the best thing for you to do. But in fact, it's not right lah. Just a preemption. But she had to take STPM because that's the only avenue that she has. And so that is part of the reason why. I remember this was during general election, during PRU. I was asked the same thing. Do you think that UiTM should be open to non-Malays? I said yes. And I'll just share here. I do have a non-Malay politician friend who was from the same coalition that we were in at that point of time, who told me that, Amira, can you not talk about this during election? Because it's a very sensitive topic. So, to me, again, to answer your question, we shouldn't abolish UiTM, nor any university at all, but you should change the system to open it to everyone. And once again, I don't agree to abolishing quota altogether. I believe in needs-based quota over race-based quota any point of time. Because then, even if you want to say that, no, we need, because what are the people's argument about race-based quota? The argument is that there are a lot of Malay students who are underprivileged, who are living in the rural area, who are not as well off as their Chinese counterparts. I'm so sorry, but people usually forget about Indians, right? But that's the reality. That's the reality, because people often compares Malay to Chinese. But if you want to talk about a lot of Malays are underprivileged, they are not rich, they don't start from the same starting point, that can also be tackled with needs-based quota. You don't need race-based quota because you have rich Chinese, rich Indian and rich Malays. You also have poor Malay, poor Chinese and poor Indians. And also all the other races that we rarely talk about, right? Kita ada banyak lagi race sebenarnya berbanding daripada Melayu, Cina dan India sahaja. So, needs-based quota can tackle whatever issue that we are using right now as the argument even better than race-based quota. Now, why do I say even better? Because at the end of the day, let's look at SBP, for example. Why was SBP established? Do you guys know why SBP was established? Yeah, why was it established? Sekolah Berasrama Penuh, why was it? Sorry, I should have put into context. Why does Sekolah Berasrama Penuh established? You mentioned for underprivileged. Yeah. So SBP was actually established to help the underprivileged students. Because then dia tak payahlah fikir siapa nak hantar dia pergi sekolah, siapa nak bagi makan apa kat rumah, balik rumah ada makanan ke tak. That was the reason why SBP was established. And they made it into an all-Malay system because at that point of time, because of the divide and conquer, most of the underprivileged are Malays at that point of time. But what do you see happening now in SBP? A lot of the students who got into SBP are actually from very well-off family. I know a lot of my friends who have become like macam, they call it like legacy. You know, like, oh, you know, my mother was from this sekolah, I also want to go to this sekolah. Dia punya nenek pun pergi sekolah tu, dia punya makcik pun pergi sekolah tu. They are all very well-off people. So the issue with race-based quota is because what happens is right now, the elites are benefiting from it more than those who are underprivileged. And that's why it is wrong to continue on with it. So regardless whether you're Malay ke, you're Chinese ke, Indian, Kadazan, Iban, Dayak, Sikh, if you are underprivileged, you can all benefit from needs-based quota. And that's what MUDA, that's one of the most important policy fight for MUDA actually. Yeah.
Dan nak tambah sikit je daripada apa yang disebutkan oleh Mira. Sebenarnya, I believe, and I sincerely believe, and I totally believe, that need-based quota at the end of the day akan bantu lebih ramai orang Melayu.
Yeah.
Yang miskin. Because like Mira mentioned, people yang pergi SBP sekarang ni, at the end of the day, ramai yang daripada kelompok elit Melayu. Bukan lagi asalnya untuk bawa kepada orang miskin. Cuma sebab itu kita selalu kata, orang yang miskin, orang yang struggle to live ini, dia berkongsi pengalaman yang sama. Dan dia juga sebenarnya berkongsi musuh yang sama. Dan musuh mereka ini bukan orang Melayu, bukan orang Cina, bukan orang India. Tapi mereka yang mengambil hak-hak orang-orang yang sepatutnya dibantu ini, seperti SBP dan sebagainya. Dan sebab itu kita MUDA akan terus konsisten dalam isu ini untuk membawa idea kota. Tapi percayalah pada saya nampak ada tangan angkat, tapi percayalah pada saya, kalau kawan-kawan media kita keluarkan hari ini berita, Amira, Aisya, MUDA percaya kita kena buka UiTM kepada orang bukan Melayu, orang akan semua meloncat. Semua akan, Amira, Aisya, pengkhianat, bla bla bla. No, the thing is, the problem is, this kind of issue, we really need to sit down and discuss about this. Bukan dengan emosi. Sebab kita bercadang pasal isu ini, bukan sebab kita ni pengkhianat Melayu. Bukan sebab kita benci dengan kaum itu dan kaum ini. Tidak. Sebab kita rasa this is the best for the people in this country. Sebab itu kita cadangkan. Kalau kamu tak setuju, it's okay. But why don't we sit down and we discuss about this issue, not with emotion, tapi berdasarkan fakta dan bagaimana untuk kita membantu orang yang susah dalam negara ini. So, itu sedikit saja daripada apa yang.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we can open the question to the floor. Yes, go ahead.
So not only in education, in other sectors as well. policy making. So for example, citizenship, education. People often talk about the political will of our politicians. Now we are just normal nations, right? We are fighting for isolation. How do you think that personally that we want to put the people's will into policy making other than using politicians? Thank you.
I think Amir can go days about this as well, right? Because you know, there are many avenues for regular Malaysians to bring their voices forward. When I say this, I think again people will say kita ni penghasut, but when soft power doesn't work, for example, when you've done a lot of campaigns, when you've sent in memorandums, when you have tweeted until your thumbs cannot move anymore, when you have done all kinds of things, but government still doesn't listen to you, and that's where the people take it to the street. So I think one of the things that I just want to share, and I think Amir would have more credibility to speak about this. Of course, one of the things is for me, if you really want to push for a certain agenda, the best way is to get organized. What does it mean by getting organized? It doesn't necessarily mean for you to form a political party. We have decided to form a political party, but so many of our other friends who got organized by forming an NGO, but even if you don't form an NGO, you get organized by, this is an organized thing, right? What you are doing right now is also getting organized by having campaigns, by you know, educating other people. This is what we call soft power, right? You get organized, you educate people, and you try to lobby in your own ways and means. Lobbying means you can, you know, talk to your lawmaker. How many of you all here know who your lawmaker is? Siapa kenal dia punya adun dan MP? Okay, for those yang tak kenal, I would strongly advise, habis je ataupun sekarang juga, since you all have handphone, Google who your adun and MP is. Know where they are, their office. Tak perlu stop sampai kat mana dia live, because I'll also be scared about it. But also know where their office is, know how to contact them, and lobby to them about what you want them to lobby to the Dewan Parlimen or to the Dewan Undangan Negeri. So number one is get organized. I'll give you a very good example of people's power that got organized. Undi 18, for example, right? Which is a very good example. It started off with just, you know, 2 regular Malaysians who wanted to, of course, the conversation about Undi 18, about voting at the age of 18 years old has started way before Undi 18 was established. Lim Kit Siang was one of the first people who talked about bringing the age down to 18 years old. That was in the 80s or 70s. It was way back then. But it really gained popularity when Undi 18 NGO was established, Kira and Tarma. And they got organized. Now what did they do? They first started with lobbying to an MP that they believe would carry their voice. They lobbied to Syed Saddiq. So then Syed Saddiq, being a minister and an MP, have the power to lobby that into the Dewan Parlimen. So then you got Undi 18 to be passed in Parliament, but it wasn't gazetted. So you have to remember, Undi 18 it was passed, you know, unanimously in Parliament, but it wasn't gazetted until they organized a street rally, which was the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first street protest after when COVID happened, right? So they organized themselves on the street to pressure that government at that point of time. Was it Ismail Sabri or Muhyiddin Yassin? Ismail Sabri, to pressure Ismail Sabri to gazette Undi 18. So Undi 18 is one of the most, I would say, most recent and maybe most relatable way of how regular Malaysians can get organized in Malaysia. Of course, then you have other means of action as well lah. But I would say that right now, even if you guys tak rasa macam, you know, I don't want to do all those things, getting organized, not everyone wants to be an activist, right? So you do have the power of social media, and you can always speak up and tag your MP, tag your adun. I myself can attest that if someone, even one person, tag me so many times to one issue, I would eventually succumb and listen to that person. And really meet up with that person and say, actually what you want to talk about this. Sebab dia non-stop tagging me, for example. So it doesn't take 10,000 people to meet an MP and ask an MP to do something. It can take one person, it can take two people, it can take this one room. You know, as long as you are really passionate about fighting for something, you will have avenue to do it. But I don't know, all of you, I'm sure, you know, coming here in the first place means that you do probably have intention to get organized in some way or another. We can always have that discussion, regardless whether or not it's a political party or an NGO. We can always talk about how you really want to get organized. Yeah, and I think Amir would be the best person to talk about it, because he has organized so many NGO rally, whatever not, got him into lockup. You can talk to him.
But I'm not going to answer your question. No, because I think Amira have put it really well. You can, if you don't want to join political party, it's okay. Nobody force you to join party. We are not here to force you to join MUDA. But please, ATC, make sure before they go out, ambil details there. No lah, just kidding. No, you can join NGO. If you don't want to join NGO, you can form your own NGO. If you don't want to form NGO, you can do like what Rashid Fadil, buat protes sorang-sorang pasal isu yang korang nak buat. You can do. Tapi saya nak cerita macam mana saya boleh masuk kerja dengan NGO. Okay? Of course, one is because of music. I think I told many people I'm very into music and at that time punk music. And punk music is not for everyone. It's a very loud music. People hear, benda ni kan, tak suka lah. Tapi the lyrics are very political. They criticize the community. They criticize a lot of other things. And I'm influenced by pen like Anti-Flag in Pennsylvania, USA. Because I grew up dengan memory perang Iraq. So memory perang Iraq ni, for me, is very important. Dia bagi trauma kepada kita. Diorang ni bukan saja dia main muzik, dia bukan saja bercerita tentang isu-isu ini, dia terlibat dengan protes-protes anti perang juga. So sebab itu saya berminat dengan aktivisme, sebab pertama muzik lah, saya ada band, kemudiannya kita pun mula terlibat dengan aktivisme. Kedua sebab saya membesar di Balakong, keadaan dia ialah dia bukan di kawasan luar bandar, tapi kawasan di mana orang luar bandar datang pindah. So banyak social problem dekat sana. Kawan-kawan saya terlibat dengan gangsterism, dadah, sebagainya, macam-macam lah. So benda tu juga. Tapi sebenarnya ada satu juga benda yang penting, ya, selain daripada benda-benda ni.
Awak tak terlibat?
Tak ada, saya tak terlibat, jangan risau. Tapi ada satu benda yang penting sebenarnya. Saya just nak cerita-cerita sembang-sembang lah. Saya rasa kawan-kawan pun dah penat nak terlalu serius kan. Saya melalui satu masalah existential. Lepas waktu saya ke universiti, terlibat dengan aktivisme di universiti, tapi saya lalu existential crisis. I really like to observe people. Last time lah. Right now I don't really like to observe people. Last time I really like to observe people. I mean like, okay, macam mana dia ni buat dan sebagainya. And I always question myself. Do I want to be like them? What I mean is, dulu lah, ini betul-betul masalah existential. Existential ni masalah kewujudan. Masalah kau, you hidup dalam dunia ini, you rasa apa tujuan you hidup dalam dunia. Macam itulah existential. At some point you will go through this existential punya issue. Saya selalu kata yang saya tak nak jadi macam dia. Maksudnya adalah saya tak nak hidup, pergi sekolah, pergi kerja, pergi universiti, pergi kerja, kahwin, mati. It's not that I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I don't want to be like that. I always believe that there is much more to life. There is meaning, ada lagi banyak tentang hidup ni. There is a reason why you are here. That you want to do something for other people as well. I'm not saying that this is for everyone also, but I'm saying that waktu tu saya juga melalui this existence. So saya rasa I want to do something, but I don't want to join political party. But what should I do? So I started to get involved in demonstration. I started to get involved with NGOs. with birth-say, with blah blah blah. So that's why I end up bekerja dalam bidang hak asasi manusia dan juga NGO juga. Sebab saya juga tak boleh membayangkan waktu itu saya pergi ke pejabat pukul 8 pagi, keluar 5 petang every day until I die. Waktu itulah. Tapi saya tak kata itu salah, kawan-kawan jangan kata, alamak salah pula punya aku. Tak, no. I mean like I also believe that this is not for everyone, but everyone have their own meaning of life, their own ways to define dan berikan makna dalam hidup mereka. So kawan-kawan mungkin boleh tanya diri sendiri pasal perkara inilah. Kenapa? The reason why we're here today in this world. Saya juga selalu fikir, sekarang ni saya tengah tengok dengan mata saya. Saya cuba membayangkan mungkin saya duduk dekat kalian dengan mata kalian. Macam mana persepsi kita kepada dunia dan sebagainya. So benda-benda inilah yang membuatkan juga saya bekerja dengan badan hak asasi. Saya harap saya boleh contribute back to the community, and that's the reason why I'm here today as a human being. So itu sedikit banyak lah.
I have a question.
Okay, well, I know it's already past 5, but please bear with us for a little while. We can take a 5-minute break. Anyone needs to run to the toilet, go ahead. And we will get started with our Q&A session, which will be the last session. So please bear with us a little longer, stay for a bit. Thank you.
Oh, question from media.
Sorry?
You mean the Q&A session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jangan balik ya, program belum habis.
Korang ada yang kena paksa ke datang hari ni?
Ada.
All consensual.